Good afternoon, and welcome everyone. It is January 28th and it is 4:03. We're going to get the Finance Committee meeting started. Before I start, I would like to welcome Kate McGranahan. She's a newly elected board member, and this is her first Finance Committee. As Jeff always calls it the best committee of all committees. So welcome. Also want to introduce Jamie Doyle and Carly Kiesling from PFM. They are our financial advisors. They are going to kick off the first agenda item. So if you just bear with me for a second, I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
We can see it.
Okay, so the agenda for today is we're going to go over the 2026 financial plan, which I'm going to turn that over to Jamie and Carly in a second. Second agenda item is we're going to have a quick look at our financial status update for the 25-26 year, which also includes a look at where we're at with the middle school project and some of our capital projects. And then just a quick discussion about requests for proposals that we had mentioned at the last meeting. So we're going to kick it off with the 26 financial plan. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Good
So,
afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Jamie Doyle from PFM Financial Advisors, and again, with me is my colleague Carly Kiesling. That's a mouthful. Um, but we always like to start off talking a little bit about interest rates and market conditions. And so the page we're looking at is three snapshots. We're going to start with the top snapshot. This is the B-Val curve, which stands for Bloomberg valuation, and this is a tax exempt curve because just a reminder, as a school district, you get the advantage of borrowing on a tax exempt basis at a lower interest rate. But then when you invest, you get the added advantage of investing at a taxable rate, which is a higher rate. So the best of both worlds, really. So what this top snapshot tells us, the tax exempt rate as of this moment in time, the yield curve, the blue line, is a little higher on the short end than average in year one, albeit short-term investment rates have come down as the Federal Reserve Committee has decreased rates a couple of times as recently as December, and they met again today, and it's been pretty quiet so far today. And then you can see the blue line, it sort of dips down a little bit in those first couple of years. I'll call that years 2 through 6 or so before it starts upward sloping slightly there in the belly of the curve where you can see we're below the red line or below historic rates. And then on the long end of the curve, we're pretty much right on historic rates. You can hardly see the red line because we're literally right on top of it as of this moment in time. If you look at the middle snapshot, same index, only this is the 10-year spot rate for BVAL, and it's for a perfect AAA credit rating, which, your district is almost perfect, but not quite perfect when it comes to credit ratings. You have a significantly above average credit rating, but you can see this index goes all the way back to 1993 and gives you some perspective comparing, for example, to the all-time low interest rates that were set in August of 2020. And then you can see the big spike upward and how things have fluctuated since then. And if you look at that red box on the far right, you can see rates have come down pretty significantly recently. And when I say recently, if you go down to the bottom snapshot, this is just honing in on that red box. So you can see what this index has done for all of calendar year 2025 to present. So, again, we've seen some really attractive decline in interest rates in the past, I'll call it 10 months or so, and particularly here in January. If you go to the next slide, you'll see some bullet points. And we're going to talk about two topics today. One is a potential refinancing opportunity, and a refinancing for the school district or refunding, we use those words interchangeably, is very similar to when you refinance your home mortgage. We're suggesting that we simply replace the old higher interest rates with today's lower rates We're not going to extend the maturity at all, but that lower interest rate will produce savings to the school district. So we'll look at that in greater detail in a minute. But the series of outstanding bonds that we're focused on are your series of 2018 bonds. The outstanding balance on that series is $38.8 million as of this moment in time. The call date, we're just past it. The call date was November 15th of 2025. And the coupons on that series of bonds range from a 3% to a 4% with a final maturity of November 15 of 2039. We're also going to talk in 1B about the third and final step of the district's financing plan for the middle school project in the approximate amount of $9,650,000. In that second section, just a reminder, and this is with respect to the new money for the middle school, federal tax law, we have to always abide by that. And you must have reasonable expectations, and we don't see any issue or problem with this at all based on where you are in the middle school project. But you have to have reasonable expectations that you can spend 85% of the proceeds within 3 years from settlement, that within 6 months from settlement, substantial binding obligation to spend at least 5%. You did that already. 2B is bygones. And then 2C, just that you proceed with due diligence, which you've been doing on that middle school project. So again, just a reminder, but we don't see any issues with federal tax law here. In that last section, parameters resolution, just a reminder of what that is, because that's what we'd be asking you to undertake again, as you have historically. This is nothing new, but there'll be a parameters resolution, one for the refinancing if you decide to proceed, and one for the new money for the middle school. And that will contain a maximum principal amount, a maximum interest rate, a maximum final maturity, and in the case of the refunding, a minimum net savings target. So let's take those one at a time. A maximum principal amount in every single maturity and in total. So that means on the new money, even though we're going to issue a little less than $10 million for your middle school project, your parameters resolution is going to be for around $11.5 million. Not because you're going to issue $11.5 million, just because we need flexibility to resize the amortization schedule based on the winning bid. You've historically utilized a competitive internet auction process to sell your bonds. And so, again, we need that flexibility to resize after we have the winning bid so that we can structure the debt service the way you'd like and so that we can get DCD approval, because by state law, you must have overall, meaning all of your issues, level or declining debt service. So again, that maximum principal amount is going to be more than we intend to issue. It's going to have a maximum interest rate that's probably going to be 6%. Not because we think you're going to get 6%. This is normal as a parameter. It's because we don't know yet if that winning bid is going to contain premium bonds or discount bonds or par bonds. It's premium bonds that, would call for a higher rate. And if you get a premium bond, that's fine. That just means those investors want a certain coupon and they have to pay you more than 100 cents on the dollar in exchange, so that when you take that coupon and that price and do the math, you're getting the going market yield that blends the two together. Maximum final maturity, that's the easiest one, because on the refunding, again, we're not extending the debt at all. We're simply, going to go out to the same place, put bonds back in the same place, just at a lower interest rate. And on the new money, that's easy as well, because we know the structure of what you'd like that to look like. So no questions with maximum final maturity. That is what it is and won't change. And then minimum savings target, again, that only pertains to the refunding opportunity. Historically, the district has gone with the benchmark. It's not a rule, it's not a law, it's a benchmark, but has gone with 2% net savings, and that's 2% of the refunded principal amount. And so we'll look at what that means in a minute in dollars. And then once you have these parameters resolutions in place, you do not need any other board action in order to lock in the rates, as long as they fit within these parameters. If you go to page 4,
Jamie, real quick before we
Yes,
move on, that was a lot of information
it was.
to take in. So, does does the board have or any of the attendees have any questions about where we're at right now and anything that Jamie has presented thus far?
And feel free to jump in with any questions along the way as we get into the actual numbers as well.
Go
Yes,
ahead.
I have a question. So the initial bond was had to use board approval. We had to have board approval for the initial bond. So why is it already within the I guess contract and or agreement that we can refinance at a lower rate without board approval? I just want to make sure.
No, by state law, to get the DCED approval, it will require board approval each time you either enter into a new transaction, meaning new money for the middle school, or when you refinance existing debt. It requires, this parameters resolution, which is the new approval that would accomplish the refinancing. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Right. Any other questions? If not, we'll move forward.
Okay, page 4 is your existing debt portfolio as of this moment in time. So if you did nothing new, as always, the top half of the page is debt service, meaning principal and interest on your various series. And the bottom half of the page is local effort, meaning principal plus interest minus a little bit of old grandfathered plan con reimbursement that you still get. You don't get any plan con reimbursement on any of your newer issues, but you still have some of your older issues that it's grandfathered on. And so we've highlighted column 4 because that's the series of bonds we're focused on right now for a refinancing opportunity. And if you scroll down just a little bit more, Kara, you can see that each of these series has a line that says call date. And that's the date to which you've promised the bondholders at a minimum that they get to hold the bonds. Once we get to that date on or anytime after that date, it's the school district's option and your option alone to call those bonds back from the bondholder. Usually, the reason you would do that is because you can get a lower rate and lock in some savings, which is exactly what we're describing and talking about this evening. You can also see that line that says PE percent. If you see a percentage on that line, that means that series is getting that old grandfathered plan con reimbursement that I mentioned. If you see a 0 on that line, it means you're not getting any grandfathered plan con reimbursement because the bonds were issued after the plan con moratorium went into effect. And we at PFM, we continue to monitor your debt portfolio all the time. Even if you haven't heard from us in a while, we're monitoring all the time for refinancing opportunities, just like the one we're talking about on the 2018 bonds. Any questions on that page? Okay, next page, please. So this is a summary of the plan that we're proposing for calendar year 2026. The IRS and tax exempt rates work on calendar years, not on fiscal years. And so this is a two-step plan for calendar year 2026. In step 1, we would refund part of the 2018 bonds, the part that produces the most savings. We're not going to refund any bonds that don't pull their weight in the savings department because some of the costs of refinancing are based on the size of the issue. So we don't want to refund more bonds than we need to, or the most productive bonds when it comes to generating the savings. And so in this scenario, you can see that we are proposing to refund a little over $10 million of bonds. And as you look down the green column, you can see this would be non-bank qualified. And we're going to ask for an exception on the refunding so that when we get to talking about the new money, we want to keep the new money bank qualified. That was always the plan. We're trying to add this refunding into the plan and maximize or optimize your bank qualified calendar year limits. So we can do that this refunding because the original 2018 bonds were non-bank qualified. The refunding would still be non-bank qualified, and we can meet the tests and the exceptions. As you know, there's often exceptions to every rule. We can meet them in this case so that only a small portion of the refunding counts against your $10 million calendar year limits. And I know that was a lot of information also, but and a little bit technical, but rest assured we're optimizing this and meeting all of the rules so that you can not only do your new money the way you intended for the middle school, but hopefully also accomplish this refinancing and lock in some savings for the district. So as at the top, you can see in that summary box right before, um, yeah, it would be net local effort savings. This is what we need to achieve that 2% historic benchmark. So the portion that we're going to show refunding in this example would generate $206,868 of net savings to the district, which is about 2% of refinanced principal. Because this example is only about a third of the outstanding 2018 bonds. And so as you look down below a little bit in column 7, again, replacing the higher interest rates with today's lower interest rates, the savings would be structured in column 7 so that you would recognize roughly $148,700 in the current fiscal year, and then your payments would go back to what they otherwise would have been, give or take a few $1,000s, and then you would have some residual savings on the end in 2036, 2037, and 2038 fiscal years to the tune of, I'll call that 25 to $30,000 a year.
Jamie, can I just jump in just for a second?
Absolutely.
Just to let for the good of the board and the group, in the event that they go out for the bids and the bids come in, and we do not see the savings that we are presenting here today, because I know that's always a concern. We're doing the bond parameters resolution, that's getting approved by the board. What happens if things don't pan out the way that we think that they're going to pan out? That I know
Yep.
that's always a question.
Is a
So
great question.
yes,
So
so
part of our job as your independent financial advisor is to know where the market is and not enter the market unless we can hit that minimum net savings target. You know, sometimes things do happen, and I've been doing this with PFM for 29 years, and there's been twice when I've recommended to a client, let's reject the bids. You know, something had happened unexpectedly in the market that day, and maybe we did hit their target, but still something unexpected happened, and it wasn't the opportune time. So, you know, I've done a lot of sales in 29 years, and twice I've had to recommend to the client that they reject the bids, which is absolutely your option. So
um,
after the auction concludes, you know, we do our due diligence with the winning underwriter. We put together our report. You know, we send that to your administration. We go over it with them. We give them our thoughts on how the process went and, you know, exactly where the numbers shook out. And then, you know, they have the final say. You know, it doesn't come back to the board to vote on, but, you know, certainly you're not past the point of no return until we tell the winning underwriter that yes, the district is accepting your bid, or no, they're not, as has happened in my example of two cases.
Yeah, and I'll tell the board that in my experience, at my previous district, I did not work with Jamie, but I worked with PFM. So the financial advisor that I worked with, we went out to bid, and the numbers didn't bring in what we had presented to the finance committee, what we felt comfortable with. And basically, the day that we went into the market, that phone call happened. We backed out of everything. And then what happens there is we wait for the market for another opportunity for us to go through it. So I just want to let the board know that when you're approving the bond parameters resolution, that if the market is not providing us with this minimum, it will come back to the administration, and we have our understanding of how we want to proceed from there. So I just want to make sure that that's clear with everybody. And I see Sean's hand raised.
Yes, thank you very much. So my question is, you noted that we the current municipal bonds, or should I say are bank qualified and you're looking to refinance with non-bank qualified loans, which, from my understanding, is a higher interest rate. So I guess my question is, why wouldn't we look to refinance with a bank qualified, with another bank qualified loan or
So your
bond?
2018 bonds are already at non-bank qualified rates because they were more than 10 million when you issued them.
Mhm.
There's 38 point some million outstanding now. So you already have a non-bank qualified rate. You will refinance at another non-bank qualified rate. They'll stay in that non-bank qualified category, especially if the market keeps moving in our favor a little bit more. And we didn't get to this page yet, but we hope to be able to refund a bigger portion of the 2018 bonds to get you more savings, and it will likely, that the refinancing series will be more than 10 million also. And it's important to go from your original non-bank qualified higher rate to a non-bank qualified lower rate to meet all the tests and exceptions so that only a little bit of this counts against your bank qualified so that we can still do your new money for the middle school bank qualified. I know that sounds really complicated because we're using some exceptions to get there, but you're not giving up anything because you already have a non-bank qualified rate on the 2018s, if that makes sense.
Yes, I understand. Basically, we're going from non-bank qualified to another non-bank qualified, giving us some opportunity for the bank qualified loans that we're, or some bonds that we're going to issue upcoming.
Right, exactly. Because the
Mhm.
alternative is if we couldn't take these exceptions on the refunding and you still wanted to do the refunding to lock in the savings, the alternative would be we'd also have to do the new money non-bank qualified. Because clearly between the new money and the refinancing, you're issuing more than 10 million in one calendar year. The exceptions are just, letting us preserve the new money to be bank qualified because we don't want it to all be non-bank qualified, just the part that already is.
Just for the good of the group as well, the district, and hopefully I'm saying this right, Jamie, jump in. We can't go above the 10 million and remain bank qualified in one calendar year.
Right.
Bank qualified has to be 10 million or below. So if we did the refunding as bank qualified, the new money that we're borrowing would not be, it would kick us out of the eligibility for that.
Exactly.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, Sean, that was a great question. Thank you for asking it. It was helpful.
Okay, Jamie.
And then the red column is an estimate of what the new money for the wrap-up issue, the cleanup issue on the middle school would look like. That doesn't look vastly different from, what you've seen before. Um, in column 8, you can see, and this is a conservative estimate, but you can see that's, I'll call that $535,000 a year. That new money wraps into your existing debt portfolio. So as you look down column 8, you see the payments start off smaller and then they increase once we get out there to 2040. That's the new payments wrapping around the drop off that you see in column 5 in lockstep in that year. And that's, the strategy that the district has used for a long time, wrapping new debt into the portfolio to keep those upfront payments as low as possible. If we go to the next page, this page should look familiar. This is a summary of just the middle school project. So you can see in the blue that's labeled actual because that's the actual, just under 10 million that we did in calendar year 2024. In the orangish column, that's the actual just under 10 million that we did in 2025. And now in 2026 in the red is the just under 10 million. And it's a little more under 10 million than the other two again, because we're leaving a little bit of room for that refinancing that we just talked about. That's why that one's a little bit lower. But you can see how that all stacks up and is in line with what you saw in our last report, which would have been right after the sale of the 2025 bonds. So nothing new to report there, but happy to answer any questions that you might have. And then finally, the last page is the timeline that we're looking at. So this is an update to the Finance Committee this afternoon. If you are inclined to proceed, we will come back with the parameters resolutions. Again, there'll be two of them, one for the refinancing and one for the new money. We can have them ready for your February 17th board voting meeting. And once they're in place, again, the whole point of a parameters resolution is flexibility. Once they're in place, we can go into the market on the best day and not be wed to a board meeting date. And so you'll see everything says or later after it, because if something happens in the market and that's not the right day, we're going to call your administration and talk about it and, hit pause until it is the right day. But we're envisioning at the earliest, the refinancing step one, we're calling it, to have a competitive internet auction as early as February 25th. And then that particular step, the refinancing, would settle around March 31st. And then these sales, we need them to be separated by 15 days. That's tax law as well in order to do this bank qualified move that we've been talking about. And so step two, the new money sale would be March 12th to settle around April 15th. So the pricing dates are the dates in which you would actually lock the interest rates and the savings in. The settlement dates, is just getting the settlement paperwork to the finish line. So again, happy to answer any questions that you have. And, when you set that minimum net savings target, assuming that you do set it at 2% like you have historically, that'll be 2% of whatever bonds we end up refunding. So we are hopeful that we'll get a little bit more help from the market, be able to refund a bigger portion of that issue, and then, it's 2% on the amount refunded. So our job is to save you every dollar that we possibly can, as long as it fits within that 2% net savings parameter.
Any questions or concerns about this timeline and the approval at the February 17th board meeting? No? Okay. Thank you, Jamie, as always, and Carly for putting this all together. I know the work is gonna start kicking off to get our official statement ready to roll. So I know we'll be working together to get all the documents together. But thank you very much always for a thorough presentation and explanation of our borrowing and refinancings.
Absolutely, our pleasure, and thank you very much for all the great questions. Take care.
All right, Jamie.
Take
Thank you,
care.
Carly.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. I just flipped back over. Can you see my presentation or is it still on the, we're good to go? Okay, 1 second. Let me move this over. Okay, so the next agenda item is the financial status update. And we're going to kick it off with a project financial update for the middle school project. So this chart has a lot of numbers and information on it. So it shows the four primes contractors that are on the job that we went out to bid for. And then I condensed the soft cost because the soft cost is line after line after line. Those are all of our professional services, our license, our permits. So that includes CHA Consulting, the Schrader Group. It includes legal fees. It includes engineering costs, some of the site work that was done. So that's what the soft cost is. It gives the breakdown of. You'll see that the original budget that was put together was about $34 million and some change. And then you look at the award amount, and we ended up with about $35.6 million. You might be saying we just had a conversation where we borrowed 30, so that math does not math. If you remember, we did a borrowing of 9 million prior to that to take care of the high school roof. And then we used some residual money that was left over from that to apply towards the middle school project. The other thing is that this project included about $1.4 million of allowances for each of the prime contractors. What that means is there was some cushion built in because it is a renovation. So once you start digging and kind of playing around with things, you don't know what you're going to find. So we had some allowances put in, and then under the soft cost, we had about $1 million worth of contingency cost. So again, that's kind of a cushion that allows us to address any unforeseen issues. So I'm going to skip over pending change orders for a second. I will get back to that, but it shows you the award amount for each prime and the soft cost. It shows you where we are to date with payments for each of those categories. And then included in the award amount are these allowances for each of the primes and the soft costs. So I wanted you to have an idea of kind of where we are with allowances and where our balance is with our allowances. I also sent to the committee a document that kind of gives the breakdown and shows every single allowance that has happened against each of the contractors. That is an internal document, as I said in the email, so you can kind of see the breakdown and kind of get an understanding of changes that have happened throughout this project. So one of the things with change orders is change orders are things that were unexpected and not included in the project, or went above and beyond the scope of where the change or where the allowances are. So you'll see under the general contractor, that 15,000, almost $16,000. Between that and the electrician, that is the relocation of our flagpole. We were originally supposed to take down the big flagpole that was at the front of the building, the original front of the building. What we've learned since then is that the material or the steel or whatever was used, when they tried to cut it down, they couldn't preserve it. So we were not able to save the flagpole. We relocated it. And then once we decided where the relocation is, we were looking around that area, and right now it is all dirt. We're concreting that, putting some lighting in there, so that it truly is a long-lasting flagpole, and it has the aesthetic that matches the front entrance of the building. The big one under HVAC JBM Mechanical, that $353,000, we have been talking about the drill and the drilling with our geothermal. That is the change order that we will need in order to complete that work with the drilling and our geothermal wells. The drill has at the property committee, for those that cross over from property into finance, the drill is here. It did come, I believe, over Christmas or winter break. So it is here on site, and they'll resume drilling. We will give another update at our next property committee meeting on of all these things. I will also do an overview of the financial update for the project at the property committee meeting. That the reason the asterisk is there is because the change orders are going to be taken from the contingency $1 million out of the soft cost. So that's why you see the 610,460 as the remaining balance. We're going to take that almost 390 of change orders, and we're going to hit it against our contingency, our site contingency costs to absorb those costs. So you'll see that we still have about $1.4 million in change orders or allowance balances. While I anticipate that we will use some more of our allowances, I do not believe that we will drill down and use our entire allowance balance, which will then go on to offset the award amount of the $35 million. So I'll just use this as an example. If we have $1 million left over in our allowance balance, that brings our actual cost for our award amount down to 34 because those allowances were built into that amount. Does that make sense to everybody? Yep. Okay. And we will continue to report out on this. Obviously, if we believe that we are going to drain our allowances or go over that, those are true change orders because that means that we are above and beyond the cost of the project. We would have to come to the board. We'd come through finance, through property, and go to the board for those approvals. Um, because we are doing change orders, I do need to talk to Mr. Grice from CHA so that we can get the change orders approved at a board meeting, at a future board meeting. I just need to make sure that all the paperwork is in order and he's ready to go for that board approval. Just so you know that the award amounts for the alternates, why the budget changed, it was lower than what the award amount was. If you remember, for those of you that attended bidding and that were up to date on this project, we had a number of alternates that were bid. For those of you that aren't familiar with what that is, we put additional things into the project as alternates, and all of the primes bid on those separately. And then we take a look at the price point to see if we want to move forward with that and we want to absorb. The big piece of our alternate that changed the original budget from the design was that we are replacing all of the HVAC units within the classrooms. That's the heavy lift. That was alternate number 14. The sun control louvers, I believe that those were in the new spaces in the main office. Those were an alternate, and then a water softener was number 17. But the heavy lift off of that number was the classroom HVAC replacements, which will be happening this summer. I see your hand, Sean.
Yeah, so the only pending change orders that, well, it's blank, is the plumbing. Is there any anticipated change orders with that? Because I presume that has to be done soon.
Yes, at this point, there's no change orders. If you go over to their allowances and their allowance balance, there have been some adjustments off of their allowance. There is no anticipation or anything that we've come across in the plumbing piece that would anticipate us needing a change order right now. Um, we what is left in the project, which is happening in the phase that's happening right now, do not anticipate any change orders in the kitchen or in the auditorium, because those are new structures. So you're not digging into anything or opening walls or opening existing things to find anything. We do have the HVAC. We do have the HVAC replacement. We are going through a pilot phase over spring break in one of the classrooms to see what that will look like as they dig into there. And then the other big one is the three bathrooms, the three main bathrooms at each of the grade levels, which will be happening over the summer. So if there is any change orders that happen, that'll be the time that it happens, is when the things happen in in those areas. That would be my anticipation.
Thank you for your response.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay, and then just so that you see as a whole with where we've made payments and kind of where the project is progressing, we're approximately 55% of total project cost. We've expended those to date. All contractors, with the exception of the plumbers, have been paid through December 31st. We just made those final payments with their pay apps. And just with the timing of those, that is when the contractor submits the information into our construction management firm and our architectural firm. They certify, they approve. So it's not that's not a reflection of where they are as far as the amount of work that they've done or that they're behind. It's just them submitting the paperwork, getting it approved, and getting submitted for payment. Okay. So I wanted to revisit back in June at our property committee meeting. We had the presentation of our priorities, which included our operational, our 5-year operational and 5-year capital plan. So you will see that for 25, 26, a big piece of this was the high school painting, the classroom painting. I'm happy to say that we are, I would say, about 90, 95% through the painting. The only piece left is the art wing. And the art wing, as you can imagine, has a lot on the walls. There's a lot of things that have to be taken down. We're looking at doing that over spring break. This amount of the actual cost includes also repair and prepping of the walls. You have to know that walls have not been painted at the high school, I think, for double-digit years. So there was some repair that we've had that the contractor had to do on the walls. We did this in phases. This did not happen all at once. We started after the operational plan was approved at the property committee meeting, we started going in sections and addressing the classrooms. I can say that the teachers and the students are thrilled. I think it looks wonderful. But again, it is a lot of work and it's reflective of years of not being painted and some repair work needed on the walls. So that has been happening. We're almost wrapped up with that. Something that we'll move forward with is and this got put on hold as far as the movement of it. The plan was as classrooms were being painted, we were going to go follow up by group or by department at the high school to address classroom furniture because once again, that has not been addressed in many years. So we want to give a refresh to that. That got put on hold when the state budget and the federal funding was unsure. So I am rejuvenating those conversations in the spring. So you'll have an update on that. The long wall decal is similar to the vinyl that is happening, the vinyl that's happening in the weight room at the middle school and on the cafeteria wall. As we reported out at property committee meeting, we are waiting because the original lay of the vinyl was not the correct color. So we do not want to move forward with anything at the high school until we get it right at the middle school. Don't want to pay for and have it laid and then it's not the right color, not the right material after all that work was done. So we are in talks about getting that done. I believe that they kind of have a mock-up of what that'll look like. I believe there's been a lot of voice in it between the high school staff and students. And the first rendering that we got, actually, I think it was this week or the end of last week, it looks pretty awesome. So once that happens and we get the middle school correct, I think we'll have a better report out in pictures on the long wall decal. And then Enfield entrance area, that is just the lobby area. This has been an ask of Dr. Markle for a while. Once again, I will rejuvenate those conversations this spring, and we'll be looking to just put something in there so that it kind of fills the space and gives staff and parents and people a place to kind of sit and wait, similar to Erdenheim, if you've ever been through Erdenheim. That is what we're looking to do there. The Navy gym scoreboard and wall padding replacement, you can see the estimated cost, actual cost. We have not replaced the Toro and the self-prepared propelled machine for the facilities. You'll see the pickup truck with stake body and utility pickup truck. You'll see the estimated versus actual. I will put a caveat on here that there was a little miscommunication between myself and Mr. Bray. When I got these estimates, that was for the truck. And we did absorb knowing that the market for the actual trucks were going to be higher based on the economy and market trends. What I did not include in that was also the bells and whistles that have to go on the truck. So you'll see on my next slide that I've upped that. It is also not the greatest time in the market to buy a truck. The prices are higher, but then on top of that, we have to put snow plow. We have to get the snow plow. We have to get all the bells and whistles that are needed for our maintenance trucks. So those are the numbers that are coming in. I believe Mr. Jordan asked a question at the last treasurer's report about the $60,000 number that you saw for Burgley's. That was the actual body of the truck. And then there's another company that works on making sure that it's outfitted. So this stake body truck is a very highly used, heavily used truck. These trucks are over 20 years old. I will tell you that the utility pickup truck that is being replaced first, that was our plumber truck. It actually went during this past weekend when they were using it to clear all of the snow in the district. So fortunately, we have another reserve truck that we can kind of maneuver around. The utility pickup truck, the chassis and the body, they are about 18 months out. The stake body is here. It just has to go in and get the bells and whistles on everything. But the utility pickup truck is it's about a 16 to 18 month lead. So that number, we won't see the truck for until then. I believe we did do a deposit down on it, but the other piece will not be paid for until we receive the truck. We have not purchased any buses for the 25-26 years. I will tell you that this year we finally got two buses that we ordered about a year and a half ago. So there's about a year and a half lead on that. Mr. Bray and I are going to revisit our bus recycle replacement. So we'll be at a future property and finance committee meeting looking to see what we need to do with buses. Right now, we have, I think over the last 2 years, we have replaced four big buses and I believe two small buses. So he is pretty comfortable that we've gotten the oldest buses off the road and the other buses we're in a good shape where we don't need to come back at this present moment and ask for that. And then in the green at the bottom, that is year one of the capital plan, which I will talk a little bit more when we talk about the next agenda item about construction management services that we went out for all future capital projects. So excluding the middle school project, we have CHA Consulting. What we're looking to do is just take a look at what proposals were coming in for future projects, which would include everything that's listed in the green right now. So that is for the 25-26 years, 26 school year priorities. Just so that you can take a look at what 26-27 priorities are, we're looking at the middle school areas. Our original hope was that this summer we could follow the HVAC project from the middle school project, and we can get into those rooms and paint and then put furniture in. So our very ambitious goal was when teachers came back next school year, that they would have new HVAC, freshly painted classrooms with new furniture. I believe that that was after looking at everything and seeing how, turnovers have been happening, which they're turning over on time, but just making sure that we are not putting added pressure on our facilities group and our outside cleaning group, that we have clean classrooms coming back for teachers because there is a lot of work that's happening over this summer. So in order not to put additional pressure on getting things where they need to be, we have pushed that painting and we have pushed the furniture back so that we can address it starting in December, moving into the 26-27 school year. So by the end of the 26-27 school year, the middle school will be completely painted, classrooms included, with new furniture. I believe that we can start moving on areas such as the gym and the other areas that aren't impacted by the current project this summer. But I believe that we just have to wait to get into classrooms because it's just going to be too much with the cleaning. We want to make sure that classrooms are ready to go for teachers and students. And we start August 31st this year, correct? So then you'll see the equipment and the vehicles. I upped the utility truck. That's another truck. And again, these trucks are 20 plus years old. It's time for them to be replaced. Anything that we can do to prolong the life of them, we are doing everything that we can do. So we are not buying trucks just to stay up to date with the latest and greatest. We utilize our trucks. We have great mechanics in the district that make sure they do the maintenance on them, that they last a long time. But unfortunately, the 20-year number has happened on my watch, so it is time to come forward and we need to start replacing some of these trucks. And then you'll see one of the big projects for the 26-27 capital plan is unfortunately, our tennis courts at the middle school they're just tired and there's nothing else we can do to patch them. And those are the tennis courts where our athletic teams compete. So they need to be remilled and overlaid. It has to be replaced. So they have to dig that up and replace them. Yes, Neil. Did I lose Neil?
Sorry, I
Oh,
failed to hit the mute button. Can you hear me?
yes.
All right. For the buses, so you have them on the 25-26 priorities, and then again and I think you said we didn't make a purchase this year, and then they're also on the 26-27. Are those for the same buses or
No, so if you recall, we did a replacement schedule
Yep.
because prior in 2016, 2018, we purchased the majority of our buses.
Right.
So one of the things that Mr. Bray and I and Dr. Yannicone have been talking about is trying to spread out and break that up so that we don't have to purchase 14 buses at one time as their useful life and they're starting to fail.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is take the oldest buses off of the road, which we successfully did. We got the really, really old ones that they just met their time and we needed to replace them. Those have all been replaced. I think those were like 2006s, 2009s. Those are off the road. We are now with the replacing two and two. This plan is to start digging into the 2016s.
Right. But so did we put that off for the current year?
We have not come to property or finance to ask for that purchasing yet.
Okay, so all right, so it's still there for the current year, and then it's also potentially there for next year as.
Correct. That's our plan, is to try to stay with it. And Mr. Bray goes back and he reevaluates and he won't bring it forward unless he believes that we need to purchase these out. The last set of buses, they came a little bit quicker than the prior two. And you also have to remember that we were visiting possibility of going propane. So that's the other conversation that needs to come back to property committee, because we don't want to keep purchasing diesel if the plan is, or we come up with a plan to go to propane.
That makes sense. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we aren't kicking the can or anything. All right, thank you.
No problem. Yes? Sean?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
That's okay.
Okay. So the mower, I guess from the previous slide, you noted that the mower was like $60,000 or something like that. And then I guess is the John Deere, is that to replace that or that's in addition to?
That would be in addition to. So
Okay. Hmm.
just like our facilities vehicles, our equipment has not been touched in a while. So the Grandmaster Toro, it's the rider mower, it's the big one. I am not a grounds person, so I Googled it and I saw it. It's a big boy. So that's the big one that does a lot of the work within the district. And obviously there's some areas within our district that can't handle that because the spaces aren't that big. So those two mowers need to be replaced. We need to start addressing some of the equipment within facilities. So yes, those are two separate mowers, types of mowers.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, the other piece to this is we put these in different colors because it was identifying if we had put it into the budget or we were looking to absorb it into the budget, that kind of had an idea and then we needed to figure it out. That was the yellow, gray, green. So you saw in the last presentation with Jamie, one of the things that I'm going to go back to her with, because I'm looking at our 25, 26, 26, 27. I did not include 27 and 28, but 27, 28, we're getting into the Erdenheim roof replacement because it'll be out of warranty. I want to take a look and go back to Jamie to figure out if we need to do another bond borrowing to address future capital projects over the next 3 years, because these are things that we do not want to defer. I don't think we can defer them anymore. I don't want to deplete fund balance in addressing these. I don't have a problem talking with Dr. Yannicone and putting a long range plan out, having some fund balance absorb some of this, but I think that these capital projects would meet the lifespan of the bond issuance, and I would be comfortable saying, can we address future capital needs? Obviously, I would not put things like a mower and pay for those out of the bond fund. Those are things we had one of the trucks within the budget in the facilities budget this year. So we are trying to work with our different revenue streams in order to address this. But the things that are in green, when you talk about looking at retailing the pool, elementary parking lot things that are going to sustain the life over the life of a bond. Those are the things that I want to talk to her about and look at what position that would put us in if we did another $10 million borrowing that would span over the 3 years to address some of our capital needs. Yes, Mr. Bedard?
Ms. Green, this is great detail. I may just be missing in my own assessment of where all of these things fit in. Like, are these priority projects? I think you talked about the color coding. Are they currently budgeted, unbudgeted? You're just giving us the update on where they have landed on actuals. I'm just having trouble tracking like what these priorities were relative to the basket of priorities that have been deprioritized.
Sure. So the yellow has been absorbed within so the top two yellows, the furniture and the classroom painting. Let me go back. Classroom painting has been absorbed through the facilities budget. We budgeted for that within Mr. Watley's budget in the 25-26 budget. The classroom furniture, the long wall decal and Navy gym scoreboard are being addressed through capital reserve, funds that were earmarked in capital reserve. The Navy gym scoreboard, which died on us right at the beginning of us doing our 5-year projection, that had to get moved forward because we did not have a scoreboard and we would not be able to compete for volleyball in the new school year. So that got moved forward. That got paid out of capital reserve. The pickup currently, the pickup truck with the stake body and the utility pickup truck, they were paid for out of the general fund. However, we are going to pay for them out of capital reserve funds. It's just that it's about ordering checks and doing it's technical details in the business office, but those funds will come out of capital reserve fund. The green is the things that I am talking about being taken out of the bond fund. We do have some 2023 bond funds remaining. So in talking to Dr. Yannicone about the priorities out of this list, while I don't want to kick anything down the road, we did lighten up what our projects were going to be this summer because of the middle school project. The biggest piece out of that we have talked about is retiling the pool and making sure that the pool area, because the tiles on top of the pool are cracked. They're also going to investigate the HVAC system. But I do know that Mr. Watley drained the pool last year. I think that that has assisted with some of the issues that we were having with the gas smell that was coming up through. It has not addressed it completely, but they were going to start to investigate what that looked like. That HVAC investigation can come back that we need to spend $1 million. That's going to be something that we have to discuss. But definitely what was in the plan is that we were going to retile the top of the pool because there's cracks in that piece. Some of the tiling is coming up, and we want to make sure that that's safe for future competitions. So that's the piece that I want to go back to Jamie, have a conversation with her on what that looks like, because then it'll also address the tennis courts, which has a price ticket of about 1.1, and then the 27-28 green is also has a price ticket of about $6 million because that's the Erdenheim roof. We have to replace our turf fields at both of the turf. That useful life is coming up, so they have to be replaced, and that's about $1 million. So that's the way that we're planning this out. As far as the buses are concerned, that is something that we continue to have that discussion on how we want to handle them. We've talked about different methodologies that if we have to do buses in bulk, looking at leasing the buses, because that's the way that you can get a bulk number of buses at one time if we're in that position versus trying to piecemeal them and pay for it this way and break it up. So we're still having conversations in the gray area. The yellow area has been determined, and the green area would be a future bond borrowing.
But maybe let me rephrase, and thank you, that's super helpful.
Sure.
But what broader list of priorities did this list come from of things that we are not doing or are on even longer term projects, right? Like if this is the priority list that's bubbled up that you're updating us on,
Sure.
like when were these projects approved? What bundle were they part of?
Sure. So this went through the property committee.
Okay.
If you remember, if the and Neil's on the property committee, so I can tag his memory in this a little bit. But CHA did a capital assessment of our district, came up with a binder of capital projects which were prioritized, which is the green. Those are how the priorities came from that 5-year capital assessment that then got condensed into a priority list of a 5-year capital plan. The operational plan, we worked with administration, and the operational plan are things that were not addressed in the capital plan. The capital plan are more longer term fixes for building, that's our HVAC units, that's things of those natures. Whereas the operational plan are equipment replacement, painting, furniture replacement. So that's why you see the different departmental in the areas. And then the outlier is the buses. That's always been something that we've talked about. So we included that in there to give a full picture of what our priorities were. But the capital plan, the green and the yellow, came from a operational and a capital plan in which we had a big list of priorities that was whittled down into a 5-year priority list, which was presented to the property committee.
That's exactly what I needed to hear. I
Okay.
missed that context, and I think you may have set that up at the beginning, and I just didn't track. But this is a reflection of the update against the 5-year capital plan and the operational requests that Dr. Yannicone put into her needs, wants, desires list,
Yes.
and the things that we're able to get to that look more like needs because things are at the end of their useful life, or we have vacant space that is not useful without furniture, et cetera. So,
Correct.
all right, I get it. That's much more helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Karen, that tracks from my memory as well. If I recall correctly, we're trying to be more proactive on an ongoing basis rather than reactive.
Yes. And one of the things that for the capital plan that is very helpful, it is, and I can provide this link to we can send it to all board members, but the property committee also has it. It also shows what the cost would be if we were to defer. So there is a 5-year projection out that if we chose not to do the tennis courts, what that would look like if we waited until 27, 28, and what the impact would be. So we do have that information and we are working with those numbers.
And we do collectively remember we did defer a bunch of stuff when COVID hit us
Yes.
intentionally because we had unexpected costs.
Yes.
And those things skyrocketed in cost because of inflation. Yep.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
Karen, if I can just jump in as well, and
Sure.
I really appreciate the context of the conversation, not only for our newer student representatives, but also for Mrs. McGranahan as a new member of this committee. So just for our new members and even for our returning members as a refresher, when we hired the outside company to do the capital plan for us, one of the things we asked them to do was rate each project that they identified as a need. And that rating list went from approximately like 1, meaning this is an option for you, but not something you need to see as in any way urgent, up to like a 9, which is, look, you need to do this right now. And most of our items fell in, if my recollection is correct, in the 4, 5, 6, 7 range, as you would expect, right in the middle of the range. And so then we developed this list looking at those ratings from CHA in order to determine what needed to be done and when. We also looked at when are things like the Erdenheim roof coming out of warranty. How long have the turf fields been been in need of replacement? And to Ms. Green's point, that $1 million turf price is per turf, and we have two of those. And so one of the things that we're looking at when we look ahead to anticipated options for revenue out of tax base, because the Act 1 index is slated to decline each year. And then we look at some of our other upcoming costs, such as next year's negotiations with our primary teachers bargaining unit. We want to make sure that we have resources available. And we also want to look with regard to the buses at whether we want to make a move as a district from diesel to propane. And we'll bring that back to the property committee in the spring, because that'll inform not only whether or not we replace some of these buses, but the cost of those buses. And so we had previously looked, you may recall several years ago, at electric buses, and that cost was just prohibitive. And so we're continuing to look at ways we can use current capital operating budget through Mr. Watley's budget, ways we can use capital reserve existing in fund balance, and ways we can perhaps borrow additional funds in order to meet the needs of the district from a facility standpoint. So I hope that helps to sort of clarify how we prioritize, what are the buckets of money that we're looking at. And we'll continue to bring, these items. This is a fluid document, the 5-year plan, so that if costs increase, if we make a shift to propane, if something else comes up, for example, we have another big snowstorm and a truck breaks on us again, we may be coming back to purchase a truck sooner than we had planned. So we'll make those decisions in real time as we need to and bring it back to both property and finance. I hope that's all helpful as well.
Thank you. Okay, so here's a snapshot. If there's no other questions about the capital project, the middle school project, and then our capital and operational projects and kind of where we are with everything. Just an overview of where we're at right now. This is a repeater slide. You know that I am notorious for this, so that you guys become very familiar with it. And if you're ever asked, or you can spitball it, at a moment's notice. But we're looking at our approved budget, and then just looking at a year-to-date overview. So we're about 81% of our revenues have been collected or realized, and we're about 52% through our budget has been expended. And Dr. Yannicone and I just recently had a conversation, and she's like, does that 81% of revenues, is that good? Like, are we feeling comfortable about that? And one of the things that's tricky about school districts is you have to remember 81% of our budget is local. So our taxes get collected from July until December. So that's a bulk of the money that's coming in. So that's normal for this time of the year. That we have about we see an increase of our revenue collection really quickly throughout our fiscal year, and then you're going to see it taper off, because what's left is we have some earned income taxes, we have some of our interest earnings from the local end. And then we have delinquent taxes coming through, real estate transfer taxes coming through, and then the rest of it is state and federal funding that really trickles us through until the end of the year. We're sitting really, really positive on our reserves right now. I've been doing a lot of short-term investing. The interest rates are not great, but what I'm doing is that I'm just banging through 1 to 2 months at a time and just putting bulks of money in. So we have money coming in February, we have money coming in March, and then I'm going to revisit it and see if we can go out to June for a little bit of a higher investment rate and more interest earning. So we're continually doing that. And then on the other end of our expenditures, we're right on track with where we should be right now. With our expenditures, we're a little more than halfway through our fiscal year. So I feel really good about where we're landing right now with our numbers. Any questions on this?
Yeah, Kara, I may have missed it, but you started off by talking about if the 81% of revenues is good at this point, and I may have missed is that on track as well?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. If no other questions, we're going to wrap up with our last conversation. At our last meeting, we talked about going out for RFP for our capital and planning and retainer services, which in fact addresses the capital projects that I just showed you in the green from our 26, our 25, 26, 26, 27 priorities list. We only had one proposal that was received. We had anticipated on awarding a vendor at the last board meeting. However, after Dr. Yannick and I spoke, I think we need to do, both of us believe that we need to do our due diligence and try to solicit some more proposals. We didn't want to just bring to the board one proposal with no benchmarking, no comparison on cost and fees. I did do a deep dive with the business administrators in Montgomery County for people that they use as construction management firms. So I have some contact information. We are going to go back out, solicit some more proposals from these companies if they want to submit a proposal to the district. But I think we both feel more comfortable that if we try to solicit, we're giving them the deadline of the week before the January 17th board meeting to submit their proposal if they are interested. And then we will move forward from there. At that point, if they do not submit proposals, we will feel comfortable that we did more than our due diligence to try to get additional proposals, and then we would move forward at that point. If that is okay with that plan with the Finance Committee, that is what we are looking to do. And then we will see if any proposals or additional proposals are received. If they are not, does the Finance Committee feel comfortable that we can move forward with the process that we used and feel comfortable that we did our due diligence to solicit additional proposals?
Yes, I feel comfortable.
I don't feel uncomfortable, but I would like to better understand why we would only receive one proposal.
Okay. I don't have that answer on why people didn't submit proposals,
Yeah.
so I can, once I solicit and find out, it could be that they have clients on the books, they don't feel comfortable taking on new clients. I can get that information. If the companies that I reach out to decline to submit a proposal, I can reach out and have that conversation so that we have a better understanding of why.
Yeah, it would be helpful if there's something in what we've put together as our requirements that's
Sure,
eliminating potential interest. That's a different question, right?
sure.
I can't imagine that there is doing planning and retainer services. It doesn't feel like we would have a requirement that would be out of the ordinary, but
Correct.
that would be helpful to understand.
Okay. I can most definitely have that information. Okay, and then there's no public attending the meeting, so no public comment. Any other board comment before I just wrap the meeting up with what's next and future meetings?
No, thank you. Always great detail, maybe even more detail than can be absorbed. But thank you.
It's not the best committee for a reason. All right, so just so that you know, upcoming meetings, we have a meeting February 26th. That is the anticipated agenda. It'll be the 26, 27 first look at budget. That'll be the only agenda item. I will do a snapshot of where we are with 25, 26, but I think that that'll be enough information that you all will absorb at that meeting. So anticipate that agenda item. And then at the regular board meeting on February 17th, our action items. Right now, it's the 2026 bond parameters resolution that was presented by Jamie Doyle. And then if we have all the information that we need, anticipate a contract for capital project construction management services. But it will not be without the additional information that you requested. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I do. Ms. Green, if we could, in the next Finance Committee meeting, list here on this slide, maybe talk about with a successful bond parameter resolution and we go to market and we are able to recognize savings in the fiscal year, how are those savings then deployed in the current year? Meaning, are we, putting those dollars back into the fund? Are we uh, covering some of these costs on the capital plan? Like what do
Sure.
we actually do once we realize those potential savings?
Sure. I can most definitely have that discussion. I can tell you off the top of my head and where I would recommend they go is if it would reduce the dependency on fund balance. If we're anticipated to use 700,000 and we realize savings, um, that it would be 500,000 because we have flexibility with fund balance as opposed to shooting that gap and closing that gap.
Yeah, that's great. And for the benefit of the group here, we do have a stated goal under Ms. Green's leadership to eliminate our reliance on fund balance year to year to essentially fund a shortfall from revenue to cover our operating budget. And so we want to get to a place where the fund balance is completely separate from our operating budget. And that would be a helpful lever to pull to get us a little bit closer to that goal.
Yes. So that's one area of recommendation. We have, like you said, there's multiple things that we can discuss, and then we can most definitely have that discussion and bring that back.
Great.
Okay. A lot of information. Thank you for hanging in there. I really appreciate it. Any closing remarks or questions before we end the meeting?
If we could do like another 30 minutes on a deep dive of the fund balance mechanics, I think everyone would be up for that.
I don't want to scare Mrs. McGranahan away on her first meeting. This was a hefty lift, and her next one is going to be even heftier with the budget. So
Yeah, I have to get
Thanks
to
for
the high
thinking
school
of
and
me.
feed a swim team. So
well, thank you, everybody.
Well, excuse me, one
Oh,
question. I just
sure.
wanted to ask regarding to the I guess potential for the another bond issuance for the
Yes.
capital projects that were noted. I guess they were in green. And I
Yes.
just wanted to get a kind of understanding regarding that and whether or not necessarily we could look to use our capital funds for that. I just wanted to get it because again, we just finished 3 consecutive years, or should I say 4 consecutive years of fund balance. I'm sorry, of borrowing, and the need for another one after that. Just kind of it basically takes away from our operating expenses, and I just wanted to kind of get a.
I will make sure that we have a deeper dive into that conversation. I think as we'll get through budget because it won't impact next year's budget. The current borrowing that we're talking about doing will have an impact on next year's budget, so that's been dialed in. This the thought process of funding future needs. We have a 3-year window when we do a borrowing of the
Mhm.
nature that we're doing. So that is a thought process on how to fund these longer term capital needs without depleting fund balance because you have only a couple options. You either have to find it within your general fund, within your existing budget, which the numbers that we have, I don't think that we want to take away from what's happening in our general fund and what we're funding there with programs and staff to address those items. Um, and then, or you look at, adjusting fund balance, which we're trying to stop doing that with our general fund. Or you take a look at doing one more borrowing, and that is going to address you for the next 3 to 4 years on your capital projects. So we'll have that deeper discussion on what is the best recommendation and what's going to make the most sense for the district and what the most need is with our capital planning. It's always hard when you're doing capital projects because it's those are things that it's upkeep, it's maintenance, it's building buildings, it's fixing HVAC systems, which that doesn't have the same oomph as it does is introducing curriculum in the classrooms, but it's also needed when it's older and it needs to be replaced. So we'll have that deeper conversation at Finance Committee when it's time to talk about how we are looking and what the recommendation is to funding it. So you'll have all the options, all the information. We just wouldn't move forward with a funding opportunity and have Jamie back and say, okay, we're doing a bond issuance for the next stuff. This plan that we had in place for the middle school project was well underway when we started the project. So this is just the third phase of us borrowing for the middle school project. But before we finalized and made the decision to go into the project, we went through finance committee about what that would look like and how that was structured. So we'll do the same for the capital plan before we get into it.
No, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, if there's no more questions, we can adjourn for the evening. And again, thank you very much. I know it was a lot of information. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Have a good night.